All right, we are scheduled to go live, and we are live. It is 12:12, a magical time here at the Friday Farcast. All right, let's get this thing cooking. So we were supposed to have William Ramsey on the show today, but William unfortunately could not make it. He was receiving an award from the NAACP today for his service to the Black community. Congratulations for that, William. I think that's awesome. Uh, no, I'm just kidding. I don't know where he is, but he's not here. He'll be here next week. And we always look forward to our William Ramsey appearances because they're good. They're worth waiting for. So, anyway, William, I hope you're having a happy Friday and enjoying your award from the NAACP. It's well deserved. Absolutely well deserved. So that's me. That leaves me today with you. And since I've cut back on the 15 minutes, doing a Friday freelance, is it so bad? Let me take some of my my magical drops. I think one of these days, I'm going to do the show like on a microdose or something, just to see what that's like. But you won't know. I won't tell you. All right, let me check the audio here. Audio is looking good. Let's check the video. Hold on. Yep. Video's good. All right. Let me check a few other things here. Oh, yeah. Enhance my skin appearance. At a certain age, man, you don't give a fuck. It's like, give me that skin enhancement. I'm all about it. So, how is everyone? Summer's gone. It's over. It's August 22nd. It is technically the last day of Leo. So, birthday shout out, even though I know she doesn't watch this show. But my first wife, Susan, born August 22nd. Wherever you are, Susan, in your mad mermaid world, I hope you're doing just fine. And then Les Visible. And I should probably get Les back on the show again. If he's willing to come back on, I'd love to have Les on. Talk about a free thinker. Wow. And I've seen that guy go through a lot of stuff. A lot of stuff. Started tracking him back in the Jeff Rentz days, and he's like the Ginger Baker of the internet. You can't get rid of him. He's tenacious. That's the less visible story. And I know a few of those stories. All right. Pardon me while I deal with my nicotine hiccups. All right, who do we have here? DJ MC, the lovely and talented one. Tammy Lynn, great glasses. I decided to invest in great glasses. It was an investment in me. So why would you want to cut that short? Right? There was a period of time when I just sunglasses, just give me cheap sunglasses. I'm going to lose them anyway. So I may as well just have a shit ton. But then one day I went to France and I was in Verdun, the place of my birth. I'd never been there before. I was 41 years old and I was just cruising around town on a rented bicycle. And I stopped into this shop. I thought to myself, I need some sunglasses. And I bought a pair of Persols. I loved these sunglasses for a number of reasons. Number one, they were from Verdun, which is where I was born. Number two, they looked cool. And I remember one time this guy commented, "Oh, those are Persols." I said, "Yeah, but your ass are Persols. These are good sunglasses." So one day, my second wife drops them, and one of the lenses comes out. I'm like, not a problem. I can get this thing taken care of. I'll take it down to these guys down the hill. They specialize in sunglass repair, and I'll get it dealt with. So this is in Berkeley, pretty high-end area. And I take it down there, and about 3 weeks later, I get this message from them. They've lost my sunglasses. I was fucking pissed. I was pissed. These are the sunglasses that they meant something to me, right? They weren't just a pair of sunglasses. They meant something to me. I was a little vindictive. I decided to make the sunglass shop pay. And I know it sounds petty, but I found a pair of, keep in mind, this is like 2006 maybe. I found a pair of these Japanese designer sunglasses, and I think they were close to $400. That's 2006 money. And I said, that's what I want. I want these Japanese sunglasses. And they were like, well, but there's so much money. I said, you are responsible, whether you want to take it on or not. You're responsible for losing the most sentimental piece of clothing or jewelry that I owned. Which is true. Those glasses are worth it. So I got these Japanese sunglasses. They kind of looked ridiculous. They were kind of big, but it was more about what the status of this. So that's when I got into the status of the sunglasses, period. And eventually when my eyesight changed, I had to change all that. But for a while there was no more cheap sunglasses. And now when it comes to these are not cheap either. So you just treat them differently. You know, like right here, I have the case. The case for them is right here. Even though it has cat hair on it. The case is here. And everything that's responsible for these glasses is right in here, right? So you have like a little thing you put the glasses in right there. And this is high-end glass service, right? Not only do you get a Costco cleaning cloth, but you get a Gucci cleaning cloth. See, this is what happens when you I've only flown first class once in my life. And it wasn't very far. It was from LA to San Francisco. So this is my version of first class. Decided to give it to myself, and I'm glad you like the glasses because I do too. So there you go. That's my glass story, and I am sticking to it and with it. Amy Gill's here, California Contrarian. Audio is good. Right on, brother. I love microdosing a couple times a year. Great for running depression. Yeah, I might just come on here and do a little microdose freelance one of these days. You guys might enjoy it. KK Smith, thank you for the compliment on the glasses. Zeroth Eternal. Christina, like me catching live a 10-minute inside break. Right. That's a busy, busy lady. There he is, the most interesting man in Cheese County. Neil Smith. There's Steve, Mr. Thor at the door. What's going on, brother? Neo the Wise, checking in from San Jose. Oh, yeah, that's right. San Jose, that's where I grew up. You know, when I was a kid, we were moving to San Jose, and that song by Dionne Warwick was really popular. It was like, do you know the way to San Jose? I'm like, fuck yeah, I know the way to San Jose. I'm moving to fucking San Jose, motherfuckers. Right? You all want to go there. You know you all want to go there. Dionne Warwick is singing about it. You know, put a dime down and it'll buy you a car. Pumping gas. Do you know the weight? It's probably, if you listen to the lyrics, it's probably a really depressing song. It's probably a song about her life being bombed out in Hollywood and not making it. And here's this place, San Jose, which offers her this respite. Like, LA's just a great big freeway. Put 100 down and buy a car. In a week or two, it'll make you a star. That's the lyrics, right? Like, she's going away from that. She's going to adopt. What the fuck was Burt Bacharach thinking about? Had that motherfucker ever been to San Jose? Seriously. You're writing a song with Dionne Warwick and these very cool sort of pop lyrics. And he's writing about not just San Jose, but like 1968 San Jose, which was nothing. It was nothing. I'll tell you what it was. It was orchards, lots of orchards, a small, shitty, dingy downtown area with one or two restaurants, the main being Joe's famous Italian, which was great, by the way. Might even still be there. But that was it. There was nothing. Like, if you go downtown San Jose, you're running into Ronald Reagan's rejects from the asylums, Agnew State. They're walking around with Agnew State jerseys on. That'd be actually a pretty cool football jersey, wouldn't it? Agnew State. Not many people would know about that. Anyway, we'll save that conversation for next week with William Ramsey when we talk about One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. Because he will be here next week. I promise. He promised me too. And if you're on Twitter, you could go to William Ramsey's Twitter feed and say, I'm so looking forward to you being on Robert's show next week, particularly since you promised to be on it. And we all know you're a man of your word, William. You could leave that message on this Twitter feed. You get a kick out of it. In fact, I was on his Twitter feed, and I think I had a salient observation, at least one that I think was salient. Perhaps not everybody agrees with my insight here, but I'm gonna bring it up anyway. And I promise we're gonna get to the head. We're gonna get to the lead. But I have to get warmed up. There's a little bit of warming up that needs to take place here. Just a little, it's like you're about to go into the octagon. You got to get loose. You got to warm up. So, William posted this. So he's not here, but he's kind of here. So he posted this. He said, back in the day, this was considered a feast. Salisbury steak, gravy, mashed potatoes, carrots, and peas. Now, I'm not going to really disagree with him because the TV dinner, everybody wanted the fucking TV dinner. My mother was a good cook, but honestly, I'd rather have TV dinner food. It tasted like airplane food. And back in the day, airplane food was good. So it was kind of like being on an airplane in your kitchen. But my analogy is that Banquet was the Avis to Swanson's Hertz. I mean, come on. Banquet was okay. But Swanson's was like some next level shit. You know why? Swanson's had the dessert. That's why. Instead of a three pocket aluminum tray, they have all aluminum. It's probably so great for everybody. All those meals just soaking up that aluminum. Years later, we've got all these Alzheimer's cases directly linked to Swanson and Banquet TV dinners. Sitting around the TV, soaking up all that aluminum and those cathode rays. But who didn't like a good TV fucking dinner? Let's be honest. Let's be honest. Okay. Who else do we have? They do Pia and Granny Smith apples for mom's dinner. Well, that's nice of you. Sounds like mom's getting an apple pie. That's what mom's getting. Charlie, what's happening from Biloxi? I guess your guy will not be playing quarterback for the rest of the preseason. He just sets out one more game. Let's see. Bebby. Hey, Bebby. Marcus is here. What's up, Marcus? Leanne Watt, all the way from Austin. What's up, Leanne? Sun Sue, returned from a great vacation in Big Bear and finally able to make it live. Well, good. Glad you're here for the live. I'm glad you're here. You had a great vacation. Question, Robert, in these fluid timelines, do you think astrology, prediction, and soul agreements are also fluid? Well, that's a big question right there. Soul agreements or astrology predictions. Yes and no. Yes and no. Fluid timelines. I think the thing that people have to take into account is chaos. Chaos is really the great mediator here in terms of how things shift and move, because all the outer planets, with the exception of Uranus doing a brief retrograde back into Taurus, we'll just go from 2026 on. This 3-year stretch. I do think there's a lot of fluidity. To be honest, I do think there's a lot of, and it's because nothing is grounded, right? There's no grounding. We get 1 year of Jupiter and Virgo, which is basically 3 years from now, right? And then this whole thing sort of ends in 2030. Where have you heard that number before? 2030. But 2030 is when Saturn moves into Taurus. It is the new time. It is the new land. And when I say new land, I mean like literally pieces of new land. That's what will emerge by the time we get to 2030. We're already starting to see some of these things happen. Now, because the outer planets are so fluid and there's very little to stick to terra firma. Here, I'll give you an example. Like this guy that we're going to talk about today, who was in Nevada and got busted for trying to hook up with a 15-year-old. There's nothing there, right, for this guy to literally stick around. There's nothing there. Right? He's able to get on a plane and go fly to Israel, unlike the other 8 fucking losers who got busted for doing the same thing, which we'll talk about, by the way. So it's not a great example, but it's an example definitely of fluidity. But that fluidity doesn't mean that he gets away scot-free. It just opens up another realm of possible futures. I feel like if you're a creepy asshole, it doesn't matter how fluid the timelines are. You're always going to wind up in some kind of a creepy, fluid asshole timeline. That's what I think. Like you can't really escape what's coming. Even if you do have government connections, like eventually it will come up with you. I'll just give you an example. We were going to talk about it eventually. We may as well talk about it now. So Jeffrey Epstein, Ghislaine Maxwell, the circus. Like, let's just call that the circus, because that's what it is. It's a circus. And we watched basically Trump pull up the posts from the circus tent. And it's like, the circus is leaving town now. We're done. We're done. That was a thrilling show with lots of scantily clad young girls in sequin suits doing death-defying acts. Probably literally. And it's over. He was a creep, bad person. We're still talking about it. It's time to move on. And that was it, right? And then you get this sit down with Maxwell, and apparently she spills all the beans, except for, of course, the Trump beans, and gets moved into basically the same situation that Jeffrey Epstein was in before he got released. It's essentially the same state, same prison program, different prison. She's a woman, but she gets out. There are days where she gets out and she is able to do things. Same thing happened to Jeffrey Epstein. But remember, all this is just supposed to just go away. Go away, look away. None of it happened. Well, guess what? Something did happen. And it was this guy who is the head of cyber fucking security in Israel. He answers to Netanyahu. And what does he get busted for? He gets busted for the same thing that people were getting theoretically compromised by the agencies that have usually 3 letters after them, or in the case of the Mossad, more than 3. But it was the business of compromise, which is one of the oldest businesses going. It's the business of compromise. And so, yeah, you can shove all that down and proclaim that it's a new time, a new day, right? That he was a creep and it's time to move on. But it doesn't really go away, does it? No, it's like whack-a-mole, and it pops up over here in Nevada. So the timelines may be fluid, but there are certain things you just can't get out of. Like this is so okay. Let's talk about the human factor here. We're going to embrace the human factor. Whatever you think of Nick Fuentes, whether he's controlled opposition, whether he's a perpy creep, whether he is the Gen Z incarnation of Adolf Hitler, able to inspire an entire generation. Whatever you think of Nick Fuentes on a personal level, right? There is something about the conversation that has gone incredibly viral. Now, it's been happening for a while. It's not just Nick Fuentes. There have been people who have sacrificed their lives, their careers, their financial well-being in a way that a lot of people, like Tucker Carlson, will never, ever, ever have to worry about being financially canceled because he may have some unkind words about Israel. He'll never have to worry about it because Tucker has all these trusts and all these things that basically allow him to do what he can. They're bulletproof, right? So Tucker doesn't really have a whole lot to worry about. He's kind of uncompromisable in that regard. But in order to get for Tucker to be in that position, I mean, obviously a lot had to happen, but there were a lot of people who have really been persecuted along the way for telling truth, whatever the truth is. But when you know it, you know it. When you feel it, you feel it. And what's happening with the human, we'll call this the human factor, is that humans are like, if you had, we'll use your solar plexus, right? If you had your solar plexus and it was completely clogged up with, I don't know, like old newspaper or whatever, right? Solar plexus being your kind of, center of power. And all of a sudden, your solar plexus started to get cleared out, right? All this gunk, all this shit, all these things that people have done in order to get into your solar plexus, in order to drive you, in order to steer your, I wouldn't call it your power, but in order to steer your intention and will in directions that you think are yours, but they're not, right? It's almost like it's almost like the attachment of a virus that sits in your solar plexus and gets you to do things and think about things and believe in things and act in things that you think are your best interest, but they're not. And what's happening is that gunk is getting cleared out. It's getting cleared out. And the reason it's getting cleared out is because there has been kind of this mass rejection of certain values. We won't even call them values, but we use values as just a placeholder. People are just rejecting them. Well, look at what happened with COVID. People are rejecting their doctors. People are rejecting the major pharmaceutical medical world, right? They saw firsthand with their own two eyes that their personal property, personal rights, right to travel, freedom, etc., they were all incredibly compromised. Incredibly compromised. And people will not forget that. So what is that doing? It's like taking the gunk out of your solar plexus. Like, I will not allow another to consent on my behalf for whatever that thing is, right? It was like huge. It's a huge, huge moment in time. And I don't think we can begin to have this discussion about what we're going to talk about today and moving forward without COVID. I think COVID plays a huge role in people because people were desperate during COVID. There were desperate people. They it's like, I got to work, I got to make this money, I've got to keep this job, I have to keep my wife happy, like I have to keep my husband, whatever they were, right? People were clearly traumatized, but it kind of broke the spell in a lot of ways too, right? Enough people, may not have been critical mass, maybe it was 20-25%, but enough people said no, right? And when they said no to that, it began this domino effect of no, right? No is inside of domino. I just figured that out. So there's this domino effect. It's like, well, what else can I say no to? This is like a sacred cow. Medicine. Oh, if you don't get that jab, you're going to put your grandmother at risk. Right? People began to say no for the first time en masse. Like, there are pockets of no. You could have a pocket of no somewhere. But if you have a large group that says no, what it does is it begins to, again, have this, what else can we say no about? Oh, well, what about the shit we put in our bodies? Yeah, that. We should probably say no to that too. And I'm not just talking about these injections that they believe are in our best interest, but it's the food that we eat or whatever it is we put in our bodies, right? We're going to say no to that because this shit is bad, right? And no matter how good it made us feel during the first 3 weeks of COVID, day drinking and cheesy Doritos, right? There was a point where it's like, no, this is bad. This is not good for me. So it's set up a series of being able to say no. And when it comes to foreign affairs, domestic affairs, that no is still very much a part of the dialogue. Because it all started with COVID. And people said, no, we're not doing this, or no, I'm not going down this path. And this is getting back to your question, Neo, is that when you do something like that, right? When you do something like that, when you say no, and the no is a wholesome no, right? It's not some kind of petulant, fuck you, teenage, adolescent no. It's an informed, I'm being an adult, I'm the adult in the room, and I'm saying no, right? That has a wide-ranging effect, right? Wide-ranging effect. I can't be. It's the internet connection. So when you do that, it changes the timeline. This is where we're going, right? Because you start making different choices, and timelines are all about choices, right? You make one choice here, and it can send you down a different path or a different timeline. Or you make another choice over here, and it sets you down a different path and a different timeline. And once people started to say no during COVID, and we're 5 years out from that now, by the way, their own personal timelines began to change. They began to meet new people, different people, have different experiences. Some of them not always pleasant, but most of them better than the ones that they had before. Right. So what is no? No is a rejection of illusion. That's what no is. It's a rejection of illusion. So when you say no, like COVID was an illusion. It was all just based on theatrics, fear, hype, media mongering. That's what it was all based on. right? And so once you said no to that programming, which is really what people did, you change your life. And you're changing your timeline as a result of these choices. So the timeline, because the outer planets are not grounded in any of the Earth signs, things can happen very, very quickly. Right? We're the next 3 years are going to be hyper accelerated. If you want to use a combustion engine analogy, we could do that. We could use Neptune and Aries. It's fire water, right? It's fire water. How do you get your car, if it's not a hybrid, how do you get it to move? You have a series of miniature explosions inside of your engine with the pistons and the rings and the spark and the oil and the gas and the oxygen, and that's how your car moves. And if you look at the outer planets, we have Pluto and Aquarius, that's air, Uranus and Gemini, that's air, and you have for 3 years Saturn and Aries, and you have Neptune and Aries, and that's fire, right? And Neptune is the watery part. You put that together and you have combustion. You have combustion. So these are combustible times we're moving towards. And when you have a finely tuned combustible engine, you can go very, very quickly. Okay, very quickly. So the timelines are going to be obviously triggered by your personal choices, right? And sometimes it may not even be your own personal choice. Sometimes it'll just be like a hunch or a something you're following, and for whatever reason, right? An intuition, and then boom, you move, and then you're experiencing a whole new level of people, activities, connections, and all these things are possible. Like, even though the world feels very doomy, like and I was going to talk more about this on Sunday night, but even though the world feels very, very doomy, the potential of acceleration for the individual is tremendous. If you are willing to take some risks, because without any earth, it's sort of like you're operating without a net. So the risks you take feel very real, right? Like if you are somebody who thinks things through or is informed or whatever, and you take a risk, like you're really taking, like during these times, you're really taking a risk. And the reason why is because the ramifications of your choices or the things that put you on whatever timeline you're on happen very quickly. There's no density, right? There is some density with Saturn and Aries, which we've talked about. But on a personal level, the choices that you can make accelerate you very, very quickly. And, obviously it's not always based on no. But that no during COVID was a spell breaker. And we're having more conversations about no than ever before. Like, do we want dual citizens in our government? I would say by and large, after last week, the answer is no. And it doesn't matter what the country is. No. No is a really, really powerful expression, right? No, we don't want this. No. And people say, well, you just complain and, you can't just accept anything that's nice. And, there's so many good things in the world. Well, of course there are. And you can have an affirmative experience of the world. It doesn't mean you say no to everything all the time. But no is very powerful. And we broke a spell with COVID. We can call it Novid. That's what happened. People learn how to fucking say no for once. Not everybody, but enough did. And then once that happens, they don't have the power over you anymore. The spell has been broken. And now we're having very open conversations about things that we haven't had. And you can say, well, it's all, thanks to Nick Fuentes. I would say Nick Fuentes is an accelerator, but it's not because of Nick Fuentes. It's not. There are people who have gone before Nick Fuentes who have had plenty to say about the subject, right? But what happened is we went through COVID and people finally said, not just no, but fuck no. Okay, and then what happens? Then, if you're really, really courageous during that time and you're cruising through the internet, right, it's like here's what they're going to do. We're gonna set a bunch of people home. We're going to give them access to the internet, and we're going to let them look all this shit up. Well, that was smart. That was, of course, they're trying to flood everything with the, if you had an anti-COVID message here in this channel, I guarantee you this show would be taken down. The reason why I know is because it happened. I get shows taken down for medical misinformation. Happened all the time. I got my channels taken down. Right? That was the cost of saying no. Right? If you were somebody who was invested in it, you could lose. It was almost as bad as being anti-Semitic. Almost, but not quite. So then what happens? Well, people start looking around. Well, who's in charge of this COVID stuff? Like, who's behind all of it? What companies are making it? Who's on the board of directors? Oh, who's in charge of the CDC? And all of a sudden, people are looking around. They're going, there's some commonalities here that are making me feel a little bit uncomfortable. It's like, I'm having another no reaction coming up here, right? This is kind of a big no for me when you see Albert Bourla or Stefan Bancel or Rochelle Cohen or Rochelle Walensky or whatever the fuck her name was. And all of a sudden you're like, oh, and how did Rochelle Walensky get her job at the CDC? Oh, it's because her father was a Beltway insider for years, providing all kinds of like expert testimony for all these pharmaceutical fucking companies. And her husband has his own pharmaceutical company, and he's working on these breakthrough remedies, right? It's like, oh yeah, that's how that bitch got there. She's connected. She has absolutely zero investment in your well-being. All she had was investment in her family's affairs, their fortune, the fortune of their inner circle, and the fortune of their inner circle, which is the inner circle of another inner circle of another inner circle. She didn't care about you. She didn't care about you. She didn't care about your children. All she cared about was getting as many jabs in your arm as fucking possible. That's it. Right? And again, people looking around and they're starting to say, no, and no. And then the biggest no, of course, was Fauci. People looking at him are like, Jesus, this motherfucker was born for no. Right? I mean, has there ever been a more unlikable public official than Tony Fauci? I'm not sure. And there have been some very unlikable ones. This Adam Schiff guy is really unlikable. And there's plenty. You got him on the Republic. Tom, what's his name? Tom. People used to think he was cool. We got Tom Cotton. Like, that's another asshole. Another total asshole piece of shit. Right? He'll say yes to everything. It's like Mike Johnson. But this is what happened, right? People started to become educated. And now this no thing has continued to permeate our society to the point where, like, it started to pop up in these little black pill factories. where it's just like, no, everything's fake, everything's false. Don't believe anything. Everything is just a capital no, right? Capital N-O. And you gotta leave a little room in there for yes, right? You have to have a little room for affirmation. Because if it's just no, you're living in an anti-universe, and why even be here? Right? The idea is, for a long time there was this kind of ongoing debate. It was about the aspiration of being non-dualistic. Like, I am a non-dual being. Well, goody for you. You're a non-dual being. That means that you're beyond good and evil. You've reached some kind of Taoist state where everything is completely unconditional. And since God is non-dual, then you've reached some level of God. That was like a big thing. Non-dualism. We want to move beyond dualism, because dualism creates the other, right? Creates the other. And I remember, like, there was this guy who was a friend of my friend Richard. He was a psychic. He'd written a couple books. I had him on my show once or twice. And he was really into this whole, like, non-dualistic trip. And I said, well, wouldn't it be much more interesting if you could be dual and non-dual? Right? Like, if you wanted to, you could have a non-dual consciousness, and you could just be a part of the whole. Or if you wanted to, you could step out and have a dual consciousness and see yourself as part of the other. And you didn't have to be one or the other. There was this fluidity where you could move between these positions. And for me, that was kind of a breakthrough. Because non-dualism was always like set up to be the death of the ego, right? You kill your ego, and then just you and God. Just take enough ayahuasca, and you'll kill your ego, but you and God. But I always felt like the death of the ego and the non-dual position was kind of arrogant in some ways, right? It's like you're setting yourself above everybody else who somehow can't achieve that non-dualism. And I'm not saying that it isn't important. I think it is important, actually, so that you don't get sucked into duality. But it's not the only game in town, right? The advanced being is fluid, and this goes back to your comment here. Soul agreements are also fluid, right? So the advanced being is fluid. They can move between dual and non-dual and back again. But they have to be conscious of the repercussions, and they have to be conscious of their position inside of each position. I know it sounds complicated, but it's not too complicated. So let's go back over this. First of all, we have these outer planets that are combustible and lead to rapid social change. On an individual level, as you make choices, as you refine your life, as you either say the appropriate, because life is really about yes or no. It's really what it comes down to. Or permission, non-permission. Everything else is a byproduct of that. And so your timelines are going to be based on those kinds of choices. Right? And we've already begun to set up how those choices begin to look. We are in an awakening phase. And part of that awakening phase will meet up with people who will have very similar choices. Like, I was watching Pete Santello, and he was out in some fucking northern Arizona wasteland where all these RV people, right? That's their timeline. That is their timeline. They all made a similar choice to buy an old RV and, hang out with a bunch of reptiles in the desert, right? That's how they got there. That's their timeline. They said no to a traditional house, yes to a non-traditional house, and yes to a different kind of community. The difference between those kinds of choices and the choices you make now, again, based on timelines, is density. There's going to be just far less density, far less like drag on the system. So when you choose something, whether it's a yes or a no, if you reject something, you say, this is not in my best interests, or you affirm something and say, yes, this is in my best interest, your life will accelerate. It'll accelerate. And it will accelerate regardless of what's going on in the system in the world. Like the system in the world could be going through, a 3-day bout of diarrhea, metaphorically, right? You don't really have to go through that. Like it is, and this is going to be weird, but it is possible for people to make choices, whether that choice is a yes or a no, right? And then those choices lead them down a particular path, and their lives are going to accelerate. Their lives are going to become better. Believe it or not, I'm giving you an optimistic message here. Your lives are going to become better. And it's because of these outer planets and how combustible and how fast and how electric the current is. So, can you have like better prosperity, health, community, connection, relationships, love, higher purpose, meaning? Yes, 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 and yes. None of that is off the table. The challenge is the courage to make the choices, which are either a rejection of something that limits you. And I mean really limits you. Not like a fake limit. We all need some limitations, but really limits you. Like, I just can't deal with all these limits anymore. Right? There's that. Or you're saying yes to a situation where there just feels like there's more of an opening. And not everybody will be able to say that simultaneously. Some people can say that tomorrow or next week or next month. Some people aren't in a position right now. But if they really, really, really spend time with themselves, and I mean really spend time with themselves, they could clear out certain things in their lives pretty quickly, and within a matter of, I would say, 90 days of making consistently correct choices, those changes can be made. And even people who are in some of the most dire circumstances in their minds can begin to shift that, move that very quickly. This is all outer planet astrology stuff. And the only thing keeping you from that is your attachment to your own circumstances. That's it. That's it. Soul agreements. What is a soul agreement? First of all, I think we have to have a discussion about what is a soul. And secondly, does everybody have a soul? I'm not convinced everyone has a soul, by the way. Some people do. Some people are approximating having a soul. Some people have souls that are kind of buried. It's in there somewhere. You know it's in there somewhere. But they have like all this conditioning and, all this flack and damage. And so getting to it isn't always as easy as one might think. So do we all have souls? I don't believe we all do. So does that mean that you can't have an agreement with somebody without a soul? I mean, that's a whole other talking point, isn't it? Because sometimes having a conversation with somebody who doesn't have a soul can be kind of interesting. And you may not, want to have them as your soul partner, but that gets back into the kind of the dual, non-dual discussion. Like, are we just going to have connections with people? In soul contracts, if you believe in a soul contract, some of those things might not be that fun. What if you have a soul contract with an asshole? An asshole. Do you want that soul contract? Well, you signed up for it. It's like, nah, I'm canceling that contract. Sorry, we're done. Right. If you were to look at astrology to try to figure out where soul contracts are, I would look to the nodes. If you want to have a sense, like if somebody has planets around one of your nodes, whether it's the south node or the north node, there's something worth looking at with that relationship. But again, if we're using those outer planets as like an accelerant, which is what they are, a soul contract, if you theoretically have one, maybe at a previous time, work this out until you're done. Maybe it takes you a year, maybe it takes you 3 months, whatever, right? It's whatever the quote unquote soul needs or wants. But what if, based on these outer planets, that those contracts or agreements happen really, really quickly, and that you could resolve a soul contract in 24 hours? I mean, I'm just putting these things out there so that you can think about them differently. Because what we're trying to do is we're trying to set the stage for the next 3 years and how consciousness evolves, or our relationship with consciousness evolves. Consciousness it's our relationship to it that evolves. So I think, for me, the first couple of years here with Saturn and Neptune are going to be interesting, to say the least. But once I get past like February of this year or next year, things start to accelerate and kind of clear up for me a little bit. But it's been an interesting time. This Saturn Neptune conjunction, man, has been definitely an interesting time for sure. And we talked about this on Sunday night, which was a follow-up to last Friday's conversation, and we're going to talk a bit more about it now as we what we're trying to do here is we're trying to understand the Saturn-Neptune conjunction in Aries, particularly for the United States, but also for the rest of the world. This is a revolutionary in a sense that we have not had this conjunction, which comes together in February of 2026. Some people will say, well, the last time it happened was in Atlantis. I don't know if time is one-to-one like that. Like, is a year now worth the same value as a year 3,000 years ago? I mean, someone, yeah, it's a year. I'm not so sure about that. So I don't know if everything is just one-to-one in terms of time scale. All right. That was a lot. Let's see, who else we have here? Gloomy little glowworm. Gloomy little glowworm. Hey, you want to be petty with style? Well, why not? We got it all the while. Just treated myself to some Oakleys for tennis. Why not? Blue mirror lenses, they're amazing. Why not? I'm all for it. Right there. I want to bring a song to Sir Robert's attention. It's by the Tubes. called White Punks on Dope. What a concept. Julie Sunshine, I'll have you know that I know the exact lyrics to White Punks on Dope. That's right. Born in Pacific Heights ain't much better. Whoa, 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 whoa. We're white punks on dope. Mom and dad live in Hollywood. Hang myself if I get enough rope. Can't clean it though I know I should. White punks on dope. I was a huge Tubes fan, Julie. You may not know that. But when I was a young man, 14, 15 years old, that was our band. That was our Bay Area band. It was the Tubes. And I saw them on their second tour, which was the Young and Rich tour. Great show. Absolutely amazing. Amazing band. Saw them again later, Santa Clara University. Saw them again. I've seen the Tubes 4 or 5 times. I got bummed, though, when they gave up the big stage show. I love the stage show. But White Punks on Dope, classic. Let's see what we got to receive. When I find a pair of glasses, I couldn't use them if I tried. When I buy expensive pair, they're fortunately... For me, when I get an expensive pair, they're on my fucking radar. I don't lose those motherfuckers. This is it. Bo, as soon as I quit buying expensive sunglasses, I quit losing them, but that's funny. Yeah. I didn't lose them. They lost them. I knew where they were. You know, I was actually really pissed at my ex-wife, too. It's like, you dropped my fucking glasses and this lens came out now? These are my glasses from France. You have no idea what these mean to me. KK Smith, I've had a pair of Porsche sunglasses 50 years. There you go. Let's strike a chord for materialism today. Christine, I can't spend $400 per. I'm just going to send them. Everybody's got their thing, right? I have gas station glasses that are 20 years old. The challenge for me is I need prescription glasses. Now that I do. So the gas station glasses, which I had no problem with, they don't work. Let's see what else we have here. It's a sad song, actually. What? White Punks on Dope? He can't kick it. Oh, do you know The Way to San Jose? It is a sad song. It is. She's getting kicked out of Hollywood, right? Kicked out of LA. She's supposed to be a star. She's like, no, I'm good. I got San Jose in my future. And I'm 8 years old. I'm like, hey, we're moving to San Jose. That Dionne Warwick song. Man, it is going to be happening in San Jose. Are we going to get to go visit Dionne Warwick? It didn't really work that way. 90 degrees. Let's see. He probably wrote it because San Jose rhymes with the way. Do you know the way to San Francisco Bay? That was the day when San Jose's orchards, man, it was beautiful. Apricots, plums, walnuts. Felt like I moved to the country. Where's my horse? Now the ugly Tesla truck adorns Santana Row. Yeah, they're not very attractive, those Tesla trucks. Diane Evans is here. What's happening? Diane. Dion introduced my parents to each other. Oh, look at that. My dad did percussion work. Was he part of the wrecking crew? Let's see. TV dinners were the bomb, and the TV. Who didn't love a TV dinner? Come on now. Come on. Even the Van Camp's enchilada TV dinner with the refried beans and the shitty rice. Even that stuff was fucking good. Oh, Barbara Boots is here. Yes, Tucker's stepmom. She was the Swanson TV dinner heiress. Tucker set for a couple lifetimes. Microwave dinners, the end of health and cooking and real food. See, the beautiful thing about a TV dinner is you didn't microwave it. You know why? Because it was made out of aluminum and microwaves didn't exist back then. So, yes, you got the aluminum, but you didn't get the microwave. However, I do agree with you about the microwave. Let's see. There you go. Steve there, including banquet. Didn't mind a TV dinner before I knew better. Who did? Who didn't mind a TV? Like, all right. So, what was your favorite TV dinner? I promise we'll get to the depressing stuff. What was your favorite TV? I have a few. Of the favorite TV dinners. Now, I would have to go with, they had a turkey TV dinner. It was pretty good. Because you get your little cranberry in there. Right. It was kind of like a mock turkey dinner. That shit was good. I liked that TV dinner. I liked their fried chicken TV dinner too. That was the bomb. Really good fried chicken TV dinner. And yeah, the Salisbury steak. Couldn't go wrong with that. I think they had a Beans and Frank TV dinner too. God, you got me all nostalgic about TV dinners. Let's see. TV dinner, gag me with a spoon. Back in the day, it was the thing. HEB has great take and bake items. The spinach artichoke dip. Let's see. Can a soul contract be made while corporeal being and with a corporeal being in a body? I don't think we have the authority to override our soul in this state of being. That's a really interesting question. And again, what is the soul? Right? What is the soul? So yeah. I think the soul is how would I say this? We are both the perfect and imperfect expressions of our souls. That's what I think. Because you can't be perfect all the fucking time. It'd be boring. What about the natal chart of the original item? When there are doubles, does the clone inherit the natal signature in the original? Yes, it does. Absolutely. There's only one. And it doesn't matter which day they hatch the new little Clody clone on. That's my opinion. That Israeli creep in Vegas. We're going to be talking about that Israeli creep in Vegas. Hang in there. We're getting there. Let's see. Who else? Shirley Losciavo. I hated Tucker's latest interview with the professor. I didn't see it. Did not see it. Let's see. Don't like crows. Joan has 3 crows, can buy every day. It used to be 4. I'm into birds, man. I love birds. Fear was blown up in the air all around. Yes, absolutely. I still think COVID was the greatest crime against humanity. But this is what I'm talking about, Sun Tzu. This was the beginning of no. This we are still we are now in the political, spiritual digestion process of COVID and the reverberation of no. The sound is cutting in and out. Sometimes it's the signal. Two small numbers said no, but perhaps I think it's about 80%, Sun Tzu. It's about 80%. And not all no's are equal. Some no's have more power than other no's, believe it or not. If you had 20% of really committed no versus 30% of somewhat committed no, I'll take the 20% all the time. So not all no's are created equal. And once you make a fundamental change like that, it changes you forever. Forever. For everyone who said no during that time, you have been changed forever. And you don't quite understand it yet. Or maybe you do. But at a certain level, you what did David say? You hop the fence. Good for you. Let's see what we said. Let's see what else we have here. Yeah, Bo's got a channel up now. Bo is like jamming. Should put a link in here to his channel. Can one of you mods put a link in there for Bo and his musical side? Lunar Duchess. It's very safe for the moment. Hi, Lunar Duchess. I like that name. Let's see. Basically means they can legally rape American children. But unfortunately, there's some truth to that. For now. I'm putting this up here. Yes, that's true. There's a bunch of sleazy nobodies that run off to Israel once they get busted. We are David against Goliath. I'll keep saying no. So I feel like in retrospect, like every time I hear the David and Goliath story, I'm pulling for Goliath. I'm like, this David guy was an asshole. And Goliath could have prevented a real asshole from being in the world. He had that moment of courage with his rock, right? And I think it's a metaphor anyway, right? I feel like David probably wasn't just an individual. It was sort of like a group of people. And they were literally dealing with Goliaths. They were dealing with giants. And they figured out a way to take the giants down. So I think it's a bit of a metaphor. Massey's a good man. I would agree. I would totally agree with that. It was more than anti-Semitism. Yes. Let's see. Oh, yes, the scarf lady. She's back, by the way. Deborah Burks. She loves being in front of a camera. Remember when Trump got the COVID? Yeah, it was really weird. You know, that happened when we were doing an event here in Kerrville. And we were like, what the fuck is he doing? What is, oh yeah, I had this great was it remdesivir or some shit like that? One of his cocktails that one of his buddies owned the patent to, he took. How about Randy Fine? I know a little bit about Randy Fine. That was my ex-wife's last name, Fine. Let's see. Anything else? Dualism has developed the age of Pisces to establish individualism. Aquarius, you don't have to choose between the two. If you're an evolved being, you can take any position. Ayahuasca is still happening, by the way. Vomiting is gross. Some people like it, believe it or not. I know somebody who does, and I'm not going to share. This is so awesome. You're welcome. That thought scared me. Hi, Olympia Fonseca. Some don't have souls. Some people don't have souls. They don't. It's like, hello. They just act like robots. All right, let's get into this thing. All right. Let's talk about this guy that busted. Let's get into that, and I'm going to show you that there are some other things going on there. So this looks like a pretty good place to start. Okay. So let's do this. Let's bring this up here. All right. From Las Vegas to the Negev, Israel faces scandals over pedophilia and child abuse. Okay, so when you look at that guy, what do you see? He does not look like your average Israeli. Even his name is not average Israeli. Tom Artiom Alexandrovich. He's not Israeli. I believe this man is Ukrainian because he fits a Ukrainian profile, right? He has blue eyes, light skinned, looks like he might have some Swede or Finnish in him, right? But it's that last name, Alexandrovich. That does not sound like a very Israeli name, does it now? So one of the things that I've talked about is the perception of light-skinned versus dark-skinned, or Western versus ethnic-looking people. And one of the reasons why Zionism and support for Israel became so powerful up to a certain point is because they were able to basically do like a race bait and switch, and convinced Americans that Israelis were much closer to them in terms of their appearance. They're lighter skinned. Some of them do have blue eyes. And they do not look anything like the brown people in Gaza. Although there are some very Semitic looking Israeli people, which don't always come to the surface, but they're there, right? And so ultimately, what they did is just kind of lumped all the brown people together, whether it was somebody from Mexico or El Salvador or Sub-Saharan South Africa or somebody from Gaza or whatever. They're just all brown, right? They're just all brown. And we had a bunch of brown people just flood our country over the last 4 years. But this has been going on before that. Like, it's like, okay, in the Schofield Bible, right, Israel has an opportunity to repent. That's part of the Schofield Bible. If they repent when Jesus returns, it's all good. They get to have popcorn in heaven. If they don't repent, well, they will be smoted. Like, that is what the interpretation basically of the Schofield Bible is. But somewhere along the way, because they infiltrated these churches and began to fuse the Judeo part with the Christian part, and I know that there are people who believe that you can't have one without the other. I am not one of them. But they infused the Judeo part and they began to play like more on the Old Testament side of the story versus the New Testament side of the story. To the point where Jesus almost becomes either an afterthought or an attaché to Israel. And so by doing that, it did a number of things. Number one, even though the Jewish people don't really support or practice Christianity, it essentially made them brothers in sort of the same kind of desert cauldron. Like our people and our stories like come from the same place. And there's this overlap. There's like this Venn diagram, right? The Pisces vesica. So if we meet in the middle, then, you know, your needs as a religion, our needs as a religion, people, we find that middle ground and we're kind of good. The problem is that one side decided to commandeer the middle ground. And somewhere along the way, they changed this apocryphal tale of Jesus coming and basically saying to the Jews, repent or I'm sending you to hell. Like somewhere along the way, they re-massaged that story and it became more about Palestinians, Gazans, and brown people. I've talked about this. And it's because people, whether they're conscious of it or not, like they relate more to people who basically look like them than not. Right? They're already making these presumptions and decisions. Well, they look like me or they kind of resemble me. I think, yeah, maybe I know where they come from. And we might have something in common. Like all that stuff happens in about 5 seconds. So it's incumbent upon the Israelis to find people who look like this guy. Now, he may be a fucking cyber wizard, but I guarantee you, looks matter. You know, like when the Russians were really into infiltrating the US government and getting dirt on people, like there's that TV series, The Americans, which is really, really good. They found people that looked like they were American. They actively sought them out. They didn't want, some ethnic looking chick from Uzbekistan. No, they wanted somebody who had blonde hair and blue eyes. If she worked on her accent enough, sounded like she was from Omaha, Nebraska. Because having those people in place who looked a certain way is important. This is the same. Now, this guy might be the best guy for the job. I don't fucking know. I don't fucking care. Right? But if you're dealing with him, right? If you're dealing with him and you're looking at him like, well, he's got blue eyes. He's got, he's a whitey. We might be able to trust this guy versus somebody who looks very dark and ethnic looking and could still be like a Sephardic Jew. They would choose this guy over that guy because his countenance in a country like this would breed some degree of immediate trust. That's how it works. All right, let's get into ex-IDF. So he's with the IDF. Now, when they say IDF, what does that mean? It means that he was more than likely part of something called Unit or Project 8200. And Unit 8200, which is still in existence, and by the way, a lot of Unit 8200 people are being placed in certain positions. Like, for instance, the woman who is now in charge of like policing information for TikTok, ex-IDF, she was a member of Unit 8200. So Unit 8200 is where they will find people who are geeks and they're good at code and they're good at pattern recognition and they're good at all the things that when you put them on a computer, they have a preternatural relationship with that skill. And then what they do is they hone those skills. So it's sort of, it was kind of like the cyber version of Men Who Stare at Goats. So when they say that he was with the IDF, he was with Unit 8200. Now, Unit 8200 is partially funded by the American people, believe it or not, through Paul Singer, who is the head of, I believe, Vanguard Capital. Not a nice guy. And so Paul Singer's dream is to get all these cyber geeks trained up through Unit 8200 and place them in companies throughout America at high levels. So this is kind of what I'm going to be talking about today. And I'll broach that subject when we get there. So let's read this. Ex-IDF Alexandrovich, 38, was detained during a multi-agency undercover sting targeting online child predators. This guy got caught with some other people. We're going to look at those other people and we're going to ask ourselves, did he have a relationship with these other people? Or were they just all hanging out online, getting ready to get stung? He had traveled to the U.S. to attend the Black Hat Cybersecurity Conference, a major gathering for global intelligence and security professionals. Instead of returning with new expertise, he left with the taint of criminal charges hanging over him. American police say Alexandrovich, that is not an Israeli name, I'm telling you right now, was booked and released on $10,000 bail before departing for Israel. Officials in Jerusalem, however, scrambled to manage the fallout. The prime minister's office initially issued statements denying an arrest had taken place. So they're already in denial. Arrest? What arrest? Describing instead as a questioning, Israeli media outlets subsequently obtained court records that contradicted those denials, revealing he had in fact been charged before returning home. The contradiction illustrates a familiar pattern in Israeli political life. Contain the scandal, deny first, and then let the facts trickle out later. They never say something to the effect of, we brought him back in order to question him and find out more about his role in what took place. And if he needs to be in a Nevada court at a certain point in time, we'll do our very best to make sure he gets there. Did they say that? No. So this is what somebody in the chat had brought up. It's not just this guy. A haven for American fugitives. The idea of Israel as a safe haven for alleged child molesters is not new. Since the mid-1980s, accused offenders from America have slipped across the ocean and built new lives in Israel, often shielded by the country's law of return, which grants automatic citizenship to Jews worldwide. A 2020 CBS News investigation found that more than 60 Americans accused of sexual abuse since 2014 alone had relocated to Israel. Activist organizations such as the Jewish Community Watch believe the figure is considerably higher. The most notorious of these cases is that of Avraham Monrovitz, a Brooklyn psychologist who faced an indictment in 1985 for sodomizing boys in his care. Monrovitz fled to Israel before he could be prosecuted. For decades, American prosecutors sought his extradition, but Israel's courts repeatedly blocked the requests until 2008. The U.S.-Israel extradition treaty excluded certain sex crimes from the list of extraditable offenses, allowing Monrovitz to live openly in Jerusalem. For years, he was spotted in ultra-Orthodox neighborhoods, sometimes even near schools. It was only after reforms to Israeli extradition law in 1999 and amendments to the treaty in 2005 that the possibility of extraditing Israeli citizens became real. By then, Monrovitz had lived freely for over 2 decades, and his victims in New York were left without closure. As a psychologist, how do you rationalize sodomizing a boy as being helpful for their treatment? Like, how does that even work? We have this very it's a controversial treatment, but we found it to be very successful in alleviating trauma. And I'm actually considered to be a specialist in this. Well, what do you call it? Well, legally it's called sodomy, but we have a different term for it here. We call it psychic penetration. Another case often cited is that of Yona Jason Weinberg, a social worker. He puts himself in these positions where there's all these needy kids. Of sexually abusing a 15-year-old boy in New York, Weinberg moved to Israel after serving time and continued working with religious communities. His presence became so concerning that the Jewish Community Watch published alerts warning families of his background. Despite his conviction, Israeli authorities did not move quickly to expel or extradite him. All right, let's get back to this Alexandrovich thing. The Alexandrovich case has placed Washington, Tel Aviv in an awkward position. The United States and Israel share deep intelligence and security ties. Yes, they do. And Alexandrovich was not an obscure figure, but a senior official in precisely that field. He's like at the upper 1%. His arrest as a child exploitation sting cast doubt not only on his personal conduct, but on Israel's vetting of high-level officials. Not only that, but he fucking got caught. Like, if he was really, really good at cybersecurity, he would have figured out how to not get caught. He's not even very good at his job. If I was Israel, I'd fire him for that alone. What were you thinking, you asshole? You got caught. How much are we paying you to get caught? The Israeli government's instinctive denial, insisting he'd been merely questioned, also reflects the nervousness with which it approaches such scandals. The truth, however, rarely stays hidden. As in past cases, the attempt to blur reality only deepened with public suspicion. Okay. So this goes on to talk all about what happens to these losers that flee Israel once they commit a venial sin of violating the innocence of a young person. The culture of impunity. Together, these stories form a disturbing continuum. On one end, Israel has too often provided a refuge for American sex offenders, delaying or denying extradition. On the other, it faces credible allegations of systematic sexual violence against Palestinian minors in its custody. At the center lies the Alexandrovich case, a senior official whose arrest abroad embarrasses both Washington and Jerusalem. Let's go to this final paragraph here. The Alexandrovich scandal may yet fade from the headlines, but it exposes fissures in Israel's political and moral foundations. Unless addressed with transparency and accountability, those fissures will only deepen, leaving victims, American and Palestinian alike, abandoned to their trauma. So this piece talks not just about his arrest, but some of the other arrests that have taken place over the years. He is not Israeli. I believe he's Ukrainian. That is not an Israeli face. And Alexandrovich is not an Israeli name. Okay, so he wasn't the only person that was arrested. Now remember, this is a sting. Las Vegas pastor arrested in child predator sting operation. This is where it gets really weird and somewhat confusing. Let's get into this part. 8 accused child sex offenders, including a pastor, are now off Las Vegas streets after a major undercover operation. So they were running a sting. They had these pictures, videos. They were setting people up. Over the past 2 weeks, the Nevada Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force, along with the FBI and several Southern Nevada police departments, worked together to make these arrests. Undercover officers and federal agents posed online as children, responding to the same messages and meeting requests that real kids in the community might see. One of the men is 46-year-old Neil Harrison Creasy, a pastor at Redemption Church. Investigators said Creasy allegedly used a computer to try to lure children for sexual misconduct, which is a felony charge. For the past 5 years, Creasy has rented space inside the Good Samaritan Lutheran Church on West Sahara and Cimarron, where he operates his religious organization, Redemption Church. However, Lutheran church leaders tell 8 News now that Creasy has no affiliation with the Good Samaritan Church and that he is a renter. W. Don Seaborg, president of pastoral support for Redemption Church, said they were surprised and hurt by the news and said Creasy is no longer serving in his role. Well, what was his role? Did they have a role for him? As soon as he got out of jail, within an hour or two, he contacted us on a thread message and confessed. Busted. He offered his resignation when we met with him later that morning. We had to accept his. If I don't get it, right? Isn't he just like renting some kind of space? He had to have some kind of affiliation if they're going to take his resignation. Like, it's not like he's just renting a room there. I mean, they're not as slick as the Israelis in denying something. Like, well, we don't know who he is. What's the guy's name? Never heard of him. Look. Right? So they had some kind of relationship with the dude. Is he renting or is he resigning? Of the other 7 men arrested, authorities said they believed they were meeting a child, but they were actually meeting law enforcement. The undercover operation involved multiple agencies, including the FBI, Homeland Security, Metro Police, Henderson Police, and the North Las Vegas Police. So now you got a pastor arrested in the same sting. What I want to know is if the Israeli guy knew these other dudes. Particularly the pastor. Just a question. It feels to me like it was a pure sting. Like they'd set this thing up and they cast a net. They got a pastor and they got 7 other dudes, including this Alexandrovich. Like this Alexandrovich guy, this number one fucking guy in cybersecurity, basically the guy that reports to Netanyahu. He gets caught in a sting. Think about that. That's either just complete hubris and pride, or he's just not very good at what he does. I mean, you would think that being a part of like the largest intelligence cybersecurity apparatus in the entire world, he'd fucking get away with it. But he didn't. He was just as schlubby as this pastor and 7 other dudes who got caught in the sting. I'd fire that guy. If I was Netanyahu, like you're fired. You're done. You can't even pull off a legit underage tryst. How are we supposed to be able to really, really depend on you when the shit really hits the fan? You're out of here. So apparently, the conversations are held over TikTok, and apparently there are a couple other apps. One is called Sniffles, and another is called Sessions. So here's some of the other people. David Wanacott Yannicki, 40. Jose Alberto Perez Torres, 35. Aniket Brajesh Kumar Sadani, 23. James Ramon Reddick, 23. Ramon Manuel Parra Valenzuela, 29. And John Charles Duncan, 49. All but Duncan were arrested at locations where they agreed to meet the law enforcement decoys ages 13 and 14. The other apps that were used were Discord, Tinder, Grindr, Telegram, Chat IB, and Instagram. Now, you notice that our guy Alexandrovich wasn't part of that list. Was not a part of the list. Let's see. Yes. Let's take a look at this person. Right here. Okay. So this does not happen without this person being in charge. Meet the acting U.S. attorney. Sigal Chattah is the acting United States attorney and special attorney to the United States Attorney General. Ms. Chattah serves as the chief federal law enforcement officer in the District of Nevada. Interesting, right? Well, there's more on her. So here we go. Let's see. Where are we? Yeah, we're there. Okay. Chattah was born on April 24th, 1975, and drumroll please, Israel, and emigrated to the United States with her parents at the age of 14. The family initially settled in New York, but temporarily returned to Israel before relocating to Las Vegas, Nevada. Chattah graduated from Valley High School, earned a Bachelor of Science degree in political science from the University of Nevada, Las Vegas. She later attended the Widener University School of Law and Webster University in Geneva. You don't attend school in Geneva unless you got some dough or connections. So she opened her own law firm in 2002 in Vegas, domestic and international law. She also taught poli-sci at the University of Nevada, Las Vegas from 2005-2009. In July 2019, the Las Vegas City Council unanimously ratified Chattah's appointment to the Las Vegas Planning Commission, where she served for 4 years representing Ward 2. She also served the Southern Nevada Disciplinary Board of the State Bar of Nevada. During the COVID-19 pandemic in Nevada, Chattah represented churches in challenging the state's 50-person occupancy limit, lockdowns, and filing an emergency petition for a preliminary injunction requesting a judge to declare that Governor Nevada Steve Sisolak's orders violated constitutional rights. Well, good for her. Good for her. I think she was probably also pitching hard for the synagogues. Steve Sisolak was such a piece of shit. I think he's dead now. Didn't he die? Let me see. Is he alive? I guess he's still alive. What a piece of shit this guy was. All right. In March of 2021, Chata announced she would run for Nevada Attorney General. Challenging incumbent Aaron D. Ford, she stated her decision was motivated by her belief that the state's pandemic restrictions and shutdowns were unconstitutional. For you. Chata ran against Tisha Black, a business attorney based in Las Vegas. In the Republican primary during the campaign, Chata criticized Black for having previously donated to then Clark County Commissioner Steve Sisolak. She won against Black in the Republican primary. In January 2022, journalist Sarah Ashton Cirillo leaked text messages in which Chata compared incumbent Ford to the leader of Hamas and stated that he should be hanging from a fucking crane, which drew criticism and were condemned as inappropriate. She stated that she did not believe Chata was racist or that the comments were intended to reference Ford's race, but said her reason for releasing the messages was to raise concerns about Chata's temperament. Because of the leak, Ford refused to debate Chata during the election, stating he would not debate someone who didn't respect his dignity as a human or his humanity. Ford defeated Chata in the general election, with HuffPost highlighting the leaked text as a significant. He was smart. He had her. He didn't need to debate her. Her quote-unquote hate speech spoke for itself. In December 2022, Chata and retired attorney Pauline Ng Lee ran for a seat on the Republican National Committee, seeking to fill the vacancy left by Michael Fiore. Chata received endorsements from national figures such as Matt Gaetz and Richard Grenell. She was elected to the Republican National Committee seat in January 2023, defeating Lee by 75 votes. Okay, here's where it gets interesting. In March of 2025, President Donald Trump announced the appointment of Sigal Chata as the interim United States Attorney for the District of Nevada. U.S. Senator Catherine Cortez Masto referred to Chata as an election denier who has advocated for political violence, while Senator Jackie Rosen stated that she would do everything in her power to block her confirmation. She took office as interim Attorney General on April 1st, 2025. She continued to be listed as Republican National Committee committeewoman and was introduced virtually at the Nevada Republican Party on April 5th with her participation, prompting concerns by the Nevada Independent about a possible violation of U.S. Department of Justice rules prohibiting political activity by its employees. So she's an employee, right, of the federal government, but she's also acting as a committee woman for the Nevada Republican Party. These might appear to be a bit of a conflict of interest. In August 2025, a senior Israeli government official was accused of soliciting sexual acts from a minor in Chata's jurisdiction. They didn't even tell his name here. It's just a senior Israeli government official. We know his name is Tom Alexandrovich. And the suspect was released on bail and returned to Israel. Chata wrote a post on X blaming a liberal district attorney and state court judge for not confiscating the suspect's passport. So she's going to pass the blame. Reporting on the controversy noted Chata's history of negative remarks regarding Palestinians, including calling them animals, calling for wiping Gaza off the map, and calling 2 million Gazans, even the children, terrorists. She deleted her personal X account shortly thereafter. Okay, so that's the woman who gave our guy a pass out of the country. So she's an Israeli. She's an interim, like she's like the interim attorney general. When does that end? Like, when does that stop? Now, if you know anything about Nevada, Nevada is pretty much run by the Adelsons. And the Adelsons, I forget, I always want to say it's Caesars, but it's not. It's one of the other, big casinos. Miriam Adelson is the largest donor to Donald Trump's personal campaign for the last two elections. The first election, actually 3 elections. First election, it was her husband, Sheldon, and her. Second election, Sheldon and her. Then Sheldon dies. Sheldon, however, got his wish. And Sheldon's wish was for president to move the embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem and recognize Jerusalem as the capital of Israel. And Jerusalem had always had this kind of hands-off sanction, right? It didn't belong to the Jews. It didn't belong to the Christians. It didn't belong to the Muslims. It was sort of like the swoop of Israel, right? You have the Dome of the Rock that's there. You also have the Wailing Wall, right? Like there's like the spirit of Jesus walking through the streets, right? I mean, it's all there. But by moving the embassy to Jerusalem, basically what Trump is saying is like, no, the Israelis and the Jewish people, they're the ones that have predominance in this area. They're the ones that are the rightful rulers of this area. That's exactly what happened. And Adelson, he would give all this money to all these different presidents, right? And none of them would do what Trump did. None of them. And who would have been like the most stooge? The Bushes didn't really like, the Bushes were not really into Israel. Obama was not really into Israel. Clinton could have been convinced to do anything, but it's really Trump. Trump is like, hell yeah, I'll move that thing. Give me the money. And so Miriam Adelson became Trump's largest donor in this last election. She's in Nevada. The Adelson family has, I believe, 2 newspapers. So they're able to steer a lot of thought, a lot of editorial. So when you have somebody like this woman, who do you think Donald Trump just went into his Rolodex one day and looked at this woman and said, who's she? She looks like she should be on Fox. Get her. No. He has contacts in Nevada through the Adelsons, and they were the ones that said, hire her. Put her in charge. Right? And it just so happens that this guy fucks up, gets caught in this fishing expedition. She lets him go. All right. So I have this theory. This gets to my theory. And then we'll sort of cycle out of today's show. All right. Israel has a bit of a population problem. Now, I've looked at their birth rate. It's not terrible. It's like 2.2, which globally is actually considered pretty good. But because they've been involved in these, whatever you want to call it, skirmishes, war, genocide, whatever you want to call it, they have been losing people. Not only have they been losing people in terms of the actual conflict, there are people that are leaving Israel. There are people that are like, hey, this is not what I signed up for, right? And there are opponents of people, there are opponents of Bibi Netanyahu, they're leaving. So Israel is starting to experience a bit of a drain on its population. And I have this theory now. Not only are they experiencing this drain in their population, but as a country, they're losing power. Like yes, can they do things without any sort of punitive actions going against them? For now, yes. But they're losing power. Like the more that this stuff happens and accrues, and they go back on their word in terms of like having a ceasefire, they're losing their power. And they cannot afford to lose their power, right? Like that's their thing. Power is their thing. Power is thy name. And we've talked about this 80-year curse, which comes due in 2028. So I looked at the appointment of that judge. I thought that's interesting. I looked at the appointment of this person who is now in charge of speech on TikTok, ex-IDF. Oh, that's interesting. I'm looking at this woman that Kash Patel's running around with, who has ex-IDF connections. Oh, well, that's interesting. I'm looking at the person running PragerU, ex-IDF connections. And I'm asking myself, what is going on here? Right? Like all of a sudden now, we're getting this infusion of like Israeli leadership being put into certain positions, places, choke points, TikTok, wherever. Right? And it almost feels, look, whatever you think about Trump, he's the best president Israel's ever fucking had. He's done everything they've ever wanted him to do. Everything. So having Trump as president of the U.S. is almost as good as having Benjamin Netanyahu as president of the U.S. I mean, they're kind of joined at the hip, right? And it feels to me like as one entity starts to lose more control and power, they're looking to basically shift their base of operation. And the base of operation is the United States. And what you're going to see, whether it's overt or covert, is you're going to see more and more people who have the look and feel of being dual citizens as having much more elevated positions of power inside of this country. That's what's going to happen. Right? So you get this woman at Prager, she's going to change the curriculum. Right? And everybody that comes out of Prager now is going to be, Ben Shapiro light or something like that. Like you can just see it, you can feel it. It's like a brain drain. and this woman who's the acting attorney general in Nevada, has that feel, has that vibe. And it feels like that's kind of where this is going. It's almost like invasion of the body snatchers in some ways. Because if you want to control, if you want to just control the discussion, the debate, the program, you need to have people in positions of power that can do that. Right? So whether they're part of the online platforms or whether they're like literally embedded in the government, that's what you're going to start to see more of. Now, people are going to take notice of this. And you're going to start to see more online articles or podcasts of this transference of power that we're about to witness. Where it's almost like rats jumping a sinking ship or something like that. But it won't be without repercussions, because we're living in a time where people are noticing. And of course, you'll always get the rationale. Well, the reason why we're doing that with this person is because they're so good at what they do. And we need their expertise, and we're not going to find anybody better that's more equipped, or whatever the fuck they want to say. Right? So keep your eye on this. It's this, some of it will be very subtle and you won't know. It's almost like invasion of the body snatchers. And then some of it will be very upfront. It's like, well, how did this person get this position? I thought you had to be an American for something like this. And this is kind of what's being revealed here. It's not just the fact that there's a problem with predatory males that are connected to a country where there's dual citizenship. That's a problem. But the real problem is going to be seeing this transference of power take place. That's going to be the issue. And that's when people are going to start to be accused of being paranoid, anti-Semitic. Like they'll start to talk about this in the same way that they talked about McCarthyism. And some of those tropes will start to come up. And then, of course, well, we're persecuted people. We're used to this. We know that we bring value to any society or culture that we're a part, on and on and on. But it's going to happen. You're going to see it more and more because it's happening already. That's what this case has exposed. It wasn't just any person they stuck in there. It was this person who has a loyalty to another country, which allowed a criminal to escape to that country without much fanfare. They won't even mention him in that other article. He's been memory holed. Anyway, I just wanted to bring this up because it's been something I've been thinking about and ruminating, right? When you see the collapse of one system, and I believe we're seeing that with Israel. Israel is collapsing. It's not getting stronger. And then they have to have a plan B. And the plan B is, it's a very old plan. It's move into other places, spaces, and the ability to influence government decision-making, banking, media, and popular opinion. And you may say, well, Robert, you're sounding awfully paranoid. No, I'm just doing the math. When you do the math on it, it's like, yeah, it makes total sense. They're living in a country that has less power. It is no matter how many billions of dollars like Trump is committed to them over the last 72 hours, which he has, by the way. Their end game has an end game. It's a losing end game. It is a losing end game. And then they have to kind of reinvent. That's the part that's going to be very tricky is the reinvention. And if people are going to be wise enough and alert enough to spot what's happening, it almost has the feeling of a bit of a coup in some ways. But it's more well thought out than that. And they've been working on this for a long time. This goes back to Unit 8200 and making sure they get all the key cyber personnel in all of these Fortune 100 companies, which is what Paul Singer has been working on for well over the last 10 years, because Project 8200 has been around for a while. So what we're seeing now are the byproduct of it, right? Getting people placed in these positions. Anyway, that's pretty much all I have for today. You're not going to see this guy Alexandrovich anywhere anytime fucking soon. They may even send him back to Ukraine. Who knows? But no, he's done. And again, the reason he's done ultimately is because, yeah, you can try to squash all the Epstein stuff in the world, but it's going to pop up. It's going to pop up in a weird place, like fucking Nevada. So just remember that. Like when you think that like true justice or just the truth in general are not served, they will be served. It just doesn't always happen in the way that you think it should or does. Okay, that's it. I'm hungry. I want to eat something. Oh, look who's here. He's been such a quiet inspiration the whole time. That's right. The old Astro Cat. The old Astro Cat. Look at him. So I decided that he's like the Cary Grant of cats, except he's not gay. You're not gay, no. And even if you were gay, you know, as long as you treated the other male cats fair, I wouldn't have a problem with it. All right, I'm out of here. Thanks for being here. We'll be back on Sunday night talking more astrology. And we're going to have William Ramsey on next Friday. And it is the start of the tour. The tour starts next Friday. If you're on Locals, I put up my schedule, and you'll be able to see where I'm going to be. If you want to meet up, connect into the Locals page. All right, Chattaria, you're the best. Thank you. Don't forget to hit the like, share, all that stuff. Don't forget True Hemp Science, our sponsor, great sponsor. Spend $100 more, type in 15MINS, and you will get rewarded ably. You know, I've been doing my best to take better care of myself, and True Hemp Science, part of the daily regimen, right? It is something that is being incorporated into the overall treatment program. All right, that's it. Take care of yourselves. Treat each other well. God bless. Love you all. Robert Phoenix signing off for now. Oh, don't forget the bridge event. Come check it out. It's going to be a blast. We're going to blast off to another dimension. That's in the link as well. All right, take care.